That's the obvious. Everyone around the world has pointed this out, by the way. Japanese publications have pointed this out. It's ridiculous. But what the neocons cannot think in racial terms. It has ugly racial overtones. They can't handle that. They just can't handle that. Most people think they do it to be wise or cute. Some of them do, but about 80% of them cannot. They're like a moth in front of the flame. They can't go there. They can't see it. They're not allowed to. It's like self-deception. They're like a creature unto themselves. They just can't see it. Well, that's good. That's good that they can't see it. But I think that's funny that many of the Republicans are starting to put pressure on them. And they're doing it by stating the obvious. It doesn't matter whether it's everything becomes racial. And many people think the neocons are just being cute, but they can't allow themselves to see it. It is like it's like a moth not being able to see the flame. Bob has talked about this, but Hebrews can be like this on many ways. The neocons are one such group. They practice self-deception on many different levels. They cannot see anything racially, and that sets up a big problem. That was on the frontpagemag.com. That's frontpagemag.com, their blog, and you can Google them and look them up. And that's David Horowitz's blog. He talks about this. This is at the top of his blog. There's another piece they had, which was Lone Rangers, and these Lone Rangers, Floyd and Mary Beth Brown. They're just a couple Lone Rangers, and they're very upset about Sonia Sotomayor. They're neocon Lone Rangers, and they're very upset. They're upset because let me read some cutouts of their piece. They had a piece on frontpagemag.com, and it's just Floyd and Mary Beth Brown, B-R-O-W-N, and that's Sotomayor's selective empathy. They're upset because Sotomayor has racial interests. Well, they expect everyone else to have. Lone Ranger expects Tonto to not have any racial interest. See, when Tonto has racial interest, they don't know what to do. And they talk about this, and I'm going to read the piece. Judge Sotomayor is wrongly being told by Team Obama wrongly being sold as an empathetic nominee. Of course, this adjective is shown as a farce when one examines the record in two noteworthy cases. And she's talking about two cases, Frank Ritchie and Jeffrey Deskovic, where of course she discriminated against them. Yeah, she discriminated against them over race. And even though Sotomayor displayed a callous indifference to the suffering of these innocent men, Obama wants to ignore this case and confirm her immediately because she is a wise Hispanic woman. Another case showing her lack of empathy is, of course, then they go into Frank Ritchie. Frank Ritchie was, one of the firemen she discriminated against for, I'm sure he was white. That's just the way it works, right? They have ethnic interests. She's been told her whole entire life she's a wise Latino woman. You're never going to tell her any different because true information doesn't mean anything to them. Right? We're not interested in changing the world. We're interested in taking this thing back, or exercising power in a way. And that's really all it takes in the Republican Party. Evidently, Judge Sotomayor only shows empathy when it is a member of her own race or gender. Well, yes. You see, Lone Ranger can't handle that about Tonto. They can't handle Tonto. Tonto's got numbers. He doesn't want Lone Ranger. They don't like that. Lone Ranger's supposed to cooperate. I mean, Tonto's supposed to cooperate. Tonto's supposed to sit behind Lone Ranger and take a message. That's not happening, is it? The Lone Ranger can't exist at 10% of the bus, and that's what's happening right in front of your eyes. While Obama and his allies want you to believe Sotomayor is a wise, empathetic Latina, these three occurrences directly contradict underlying argument of Obama public relations campaign. Sotomayor is actually an advocate of old-fashioned identity politics. Wonderful. Isn't that wonderful? Justice is supposed to be blind. No, it's not. But in Sotomayor's case, what exists is her empathy is racially tinted. Republicans must vote against her confirmation and not give him more time to look into her record. Obama shouldn't be allowed to appoint a racist to the Supreme Court. You see, there's two things Lone Ranger can't survive with. They can't survive when Tonto goes racial, because they themselves aren't allowed to go racial. But yet they have to, because Tonto's went racial. I mean, it just becomes unsustainable. There's another thing that's funny. I was talking to one of the wise men about when do you think the Republicans will be forced to go racial? When will the elites have to have someone go racial? You see, the Democratic Party looks to be the stable foundation. You have all these very smart whites at all these big control points, and you have all these motley crew of minorities with Obama, the Taliban running things. The problem is that you have a scenario happening right now, and it's getting pretty desperate. It's in California. California was supposed to be this dream multicultural, multiracial state. Well, California is so bankrupt they have to issue IOUs. Well, that's bankrupt. You're in trouble if you have to issue IOUs. So it's obviously not working. What happens when the Tontos? You see, there are two things Tonto's going to start doing. One, Tonto's going to become racial, and when he becomes racial, Lone Ranger doesn't know what to do, and nor do the neocons, because they're not allowed to see that. They just can't handle it. They can't keep a lid on things. But what happens when Tontos start killing each other? What happens when California issues IOUs and Latinos, because of scarce resources, start going at it with Africans? Well, then you got big problems. That's the biggest problem for Lone Rangers. Right now in the United Kingdom, you have Pakistanis totally annihilating blacks and Africans and Muslims and all the above. I mean, it's like it's a racial cauldron. Well, Tontos do that. If there's too many ticks on a dog, as Bob says, they attack each other. And that's what's going to happen in California. When that happens, that'll produce a huge opportunity for Republicans. Now, would someone, one person on message, be able to take over? No, in my opinion, no. You got to have a chorus. You got to have everyone singing the same song and a chorus going on. You got to have, in other words, you got to have more than one. You're going to have a handful. But the opportunity's coming. The trend is there. Bob wrote a piece called "The Mantra and We the People," and he talked about the Ronald Reagan. And the funny thing about Ronald Reagan was he did what someone thought you'd never do. He took the Reagan. He created this group called the Reagan Democrats. What the neocons are looking to do, they're expecting a big fight. They're expecting a fight to come in the South. In my opinion, and it becomes rather obvious. One of the wise men was talking to me about this, and they expect a huge fight there. Sanford is a senator or governor in South Carolina or whatever. They've targeted him because maybe he's their enemy, whatever. I don't know a lot about him because I don't know a lot about Republicans at the top. I know the party is the largest European party in the world, and they don't represent Europeans, which is kind of funny. I know that's unsustainable. But anyways, they want their girl Palin. I guess they like Palin. I've learned that when the neocons say string beans, I know I want baked beans. Yeah, whoever they want, I don't want. They like Cheney, I don't. It's an automatic gag reflex. That's the way you got to treat them. So anyways, they targeted Sanford. I don't know whether it was a knee-jerk reaction because they hate and fear white Southerners. Oh, they do. They believe that the whole future Republican Party is getting rid of them. However they're going to do that, I don't know. But there's a flaw in that. There's a flaw in that because they're expecting a fight. See, someone like me would give them a fight. Yeah, I would put together, what do they do, those beer hall pushes? I wouldn't. I'd put together a handful of, we'll call it the rebel hall pushes. I would present some type of big fight for them in the South. A big fight for the neocons in the South on some level. And that's obvious. They're prepared for that. I would give it to them. I would give them a fight all out, maybe headed by the political cesspool and James Edwards or something. You could put it together on a million different ways. You see, most people think Southerners like Bobby Jindal. They don't. But there's another strategy here. When Bob was talking about Reagan and We the People, and that's what the Republicans have to get back to. They have to get back to We the People. Well, the best ones that We at the People in Anglosphere, that's where you're at, you're in America, you're in Anglosphere, are we ourselves, Sinn Féin. When you get into the Reagan Democrats, the group that blew minds among the Democrats, the group that betrayed the Democrats, the group that voted their ethnic interests and will do so and will go racial faster than anyone, are the Irish. There are no WASP in the East. There are no WASP in the Midwest. There are dominant pools of Irish voters. Part Irish voters, partial Irish voters. This did not occur to me. Let me go back and tell you a story. I was talking to someone from the United Kingdom. I won't say exactly where I was at, and we were talking about the different. In the United Kingdom, most people don't realize it, but every single ethnic group has their own box to check off. They take diversity to a Stalinist extreme. In other words, the English have their own box, the Welsh have their own box, the Scottish have their own box. They treat them all differently, like little individual races almost. Well, the Irish have their own box in all the United Kingdom. Yeah, in Ireland, there's only a handful. The vast majority of Irish are not in Ireland. There's not that many there. the vast majority of Irish are in America. There's a ton in the United Kingdom, outside